Obeah Woman has some beautiful artwork in the book. What is the story behind the pictures?
Well, they are paintings of the Orishas. I paint the pictures with automatic drawings. That means my hand just do the work more than I do. And, I find that beautiful paintings come out of doing that.
That's right. Through the spirit, huh?
Yes.
The Obeah Woman by Anastasia A Armourer. Chapter 5. Dora walked into the kitchen where Sandra was busy with preparing lunch. Sandra, would you prepare some cold vervine tea and take it out to the back shed? I have a friend coming to see me, and he will be here soon. Yes, Mother Dora. Dora walked out of the house and down the path to her gate where she stood and waited for her visitor. She could see his car coming down the dirt road. The car stopped by the gate. A tall, handsome man with long white hair, wearing a blue and white African shirt. Around his neck, he wore necklaces made of small beads and beautiful crystals. His mother was also an African slave and his father an Arawak Indian. His skin was bronze and smooth, and his eyes sparkled as he smiled walking towards Dora. She opened the gate and walked over to greet him. They held each other in a long embrace. "Hello, old woman," he said, smiling down at her. "Hello, old man," she responded as he kissed her on the forehead. "What brings you by to see me so early this Saturday? You usually come after the ice cream is made." He did not answer her. They walked down the path with their arms around each other's waist. This was one of Dora's dearest friends. She knew him very well. He was a very serious, solid man, and Dora knew that it would take something very important to bring him to her door like this. They did not go inside the house, but instead they walked around to the back of the house and sat under the shed. "Aquila, what is troubling you?" Dora asked, reaching over and holding the hand of her friend. "The days of hell are upon us, Dora." He spoke softly and slowly as he looked deep into her eyes. "Have you been observing the signs?" he asked with a strange look in his eyes. "No. I have not. I have been a bit distracted." "What is happening, Aquila?" "The place is here, the time is now. It is happening right now." "What is?" she asked, embarrassed for being so much in the dark. Aquila opened his pouch that hung by his side and removed a small brown scroll that was about 4 inches long and handed it to Dora. "What is this?" she asked as she unrolled the tiny scroll. She looked down at the writing and began to read it aloud. "And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his head the names of blasphemy." Revelations 13:1. Dora paused for a moment as she looked deep into the eyes of her friend, then with a slight gasp, she arose to her feet and walked away from the table. "The 10 missing children," she whispered, not quite believing it. "Yes. The 10 missing children. They came here from all around the world and they have suddenly disappeared." She turned suddenly to face Aquila. "What can we do to stop it?" "Sadly, it cannot be stopped." "You don't really believe that?" "Dora." Aquila rose to his feet and walked over to her and held her by the shoulders gently. "You can fight this, I will even help you try, but in the end, it will happen." "But they are just children, they are just babies." Dora was upset and Aquila tried to comfort her. "This is their destiny, and no one can stop it." "Well, I am sure as hell going to try," said Dora, very determined to make good on her words. "I can see that we are going to be very busy." "What do you mean?" asked Dora. "One of my brothers has become a renegade." "Oh no, Aquila, I'm so sorry. Who is it?" "Red Claw." "Red Claw?" Dora was stunned. "What do you mean, Aquila?" "Red Claw has debased himself. There are 7 people in the morgue because of him. He has become a vampire. Dora could not speak. Her mouth fell open, but no words came out. She just slumped down into her chair. Aquila sat down beside her. He saw how hard the news about Red Claw had hit her, so he changed the subject quickly. And while we are on the subject of the morgue, there are 3 Americans with no brains lying there. Courtesy of our friendly neighborhood Bakwa priest. Dora looked at Aquila in disbelief. The Bakwas killed these Americans? She asked. Yes, robbed and killed them. There are rumors that the Bakwa high priest, Kahega, enchanted the men using his strongest spirits he was able to reach from across the sea to these men, and bring them here, with the things he needed for a great ceremony in 3 weeks. 3 weeks? Dora asked, puzzled. Yes, there is a lunar eclipse 3 weeks from now, so the children are being prepared as we speak. The Bakwas have the 10 missing children. Dora held her face in her hands and shook her head. Oh, this is unbelievable. Why didn't we see this coming? What good is having all this vision and insight, when something like this could just creep up on us? Why is it that I couldn't see this? And what of my clan sisters? No one has mentioned anything like this. Calm down, Dora, or you will make yourself too upset to see anything at all. Dora knew Aquila was right. She had to remain calm and balanced. This is all bad news, but she must be able to step outside of her emotions in order to deal with it correctly. Just then Sandra came out with the vervain tea and some coconut cookies, placing them on the table. Dora took the pitcher and poured 2 tall glasses of the icy drink and handed one to Aquila. As he took the glass from her hand, he could see the distress in her eyes. Dora, I know about you and Red Claw. Dora looked at him, put her glass down on the table, and walked away from him. She did not want him to see the tears she was trying so desperately to hide. He followed her as she walked away. She was walking so fast, he had to run to stop her from going any further. Dora, please. As she turned towards him, she could no longer hold back the tears. She just held on to him as they poured out, like the river that was flowing on the ground behind her. Aquila held her tightly, then he held her face in his hands and kissed away her tears. I love you, Dora, he said tenderly as he looked deep into Dora's beautiful brown eyes. She touched his face gently, then walked over to the river, got down on her knees and began to wash her face with the cool water. Aquila took a large handkerchief from his pouch and handed it to her as he helped her to her feet. Dora wiped her face as she walked back to the shed. Aquila followed her, putting his arm around her shoulders. She picked up her drink from the table and drank all of it. Then they both sat down and he waited for her to speak. Dora took a deep breath and leaned back in her chair. I thought I would die when he left me. I wanted to die. 2 years of marriage was all I had with my husband, and they were perfect. I thought nothing could come between us, but then, out of nowhere came Rhonda, and in a matter of months, he was gone. Just like that. She destroyed my life. I thought that nothing could ease that pain. For 2 years, I suffered with no way to escape. Then Red Claw came to visit me. He was incredible. For an entire year he pursued me, he courted me and made me laugh. He brought me roses even though my garden is full of them. He became my lover and brought me back from total devastation. He would bath and massage my tired body after all the demands of the villagers were met, and no one even wondered how the Obeah woman was feeling. He was there every time I needed him, and he never asked for anything in return. He gave his love to me knowing that I still loved Leo very much. He loved me. How on earth did this happen to him? How, Aquila? Dora looked deep within Aquila's eyes for the answer. I can't say, Dora. All I can say is that he's killing people, and as his clan father, Leo Van Hart is going to have to stop him. You are telling me that my husband is going to kill my lover. Is that what you are saying? I'm saying that Red Claw has to be stopped, and we as his clan brothers, we have to be the ones to stop him. Aquila was trying to be as careful with his words as possible. Dora stood to her feet. You know, it's almost time for the Iceman to come, and I promised my niece, Angela, that I would take her to get the ice for the ice cream today. I'm sorry, Aquila, but I'm going to have to cut our visit short today. Dora had walked to the other end of the shed and stood with her back towards him. He slowly walked over to her and kissed her on her right ear. Dora did not turn around. Call me when you feel better. I'm here when you need me. With those words, Aquila left Dora's home. She would usually walk her guest to the gate, but today that seemed impossible. Dora turned and walked into the house. She put her large straw hat on her head, picked up her change purse, and put it in the pocket of her dress. Then she called out to her niece. Angela, it's time for the Iceman to come. Let's go. The child came running down the stairs and in minutes they were both out the door. The afternoon sun shined brightly in a cloudless sky, as Mother Dora and Angela walked along Simeon Road. Dora tried hard not to think about her friend Red Claw and the trouble he was in. She held Angela's hand as they walked slowly towards a small group of people that were gathering on the corner of Simeon and the main road. The people of the village came to wait for the ice truck. They needed the large pieces of ice to put in the pails in which ice cream was made. This was done every Saturday. As Dora arrived at the corner, all the women came towards her. Good day, Mother. They all said as they greeted her with kisses and hugs. Then they chatted with her about everything that was happening in their lives. Mother Dora listened patiently as she smiled and comforted them. She embraced and kissed the little ones, and some of the women asked her to bless the babies they carried on their backs and in their arms. After 15 minutes, the ice truck could be seen in the distance. The children shouted and clapped their hands. You see, Ice Day means that their mothers will be making coconut ice cream, a once-a-week treat that all the children looked forward to. As the truck came close to the crowd, they could hear Mappy Boy's song. Ice, ice, cold ice. Hard ice, all kind of ice. Ice in your ice. Mappy Boy is a young, wonderful Portuguese kid, about 15 years old. He was well loved by everyone because of his cheerful manner and kind-hearted ways. Hello. Hello. He greeted the crowd of people as he stood in the back of the truck among the large blocks of ice. Mother Dora pulled back to allow the villagers to be served before her. Mappy Boy took a large pail from one of the women and filled it with large pieces of ice, which he chipped off from one of the large blocks. Dora could feel the cold eyes of the Iceman upon her. He owns the ice truck and only does the driving. He never sells the ice or talks to anyone. He just gets out from behind the wheel of the big truck, stands on the side of the road and smokes a cigar. Dora did not notice that Angela had left her side. The little girl walked over to the Iceman as he stood on the other side of the road. Hello. My name is Angela. What's your name? The Iceman looked down at the small child smiling up at him with big beautiful dark eyes. He was very surprised by her greeting. In the 3 years that he drove his ice truck, it was the first time anyone had said hello to him. You see, he is Bakwa, and all the villagers knew it. So no one had anything to say to him. Angela looked up at the tall handsome man dressed in a blue and white dashiki with white pants. They call me the Iceman, he said softly, as he smiled back at the child. Do you like coconut ice cream? She asked as she moved closer to him. Yes, I do. Very much. My Tanty Dora and I will be making some today. You can come and have some with us. The Iceman was surprised by the child's invitation, and for a moment, he could only smile down at her. Thank you so much. You are very kind, but I can't today. There are many people waiting for ice all over the town, and I have to take it to them maybe some other time. Okay, some other time then. Angela seemed a little sad by his answer to her invitation. Then she remembered something. "Close your eyes and open your hand," she commanded. The Iceman, not wanting to disappoint the child further, did as he was told. Then she reached into her pocket and removed a small object and placed it in the man's large palm. "Okay, now open your eyes," she said, smiling. The big man opened his eyes and was surprised to see a small cowrie shell with bright brown spots sitting in the middle of his palm. "Oh my, what a beautiful cowrie," he said as he examined the smooth shell with his fingers. "It is the prettiest one I have ever seen." He smiled again at the child as he reached out his hand to return it to her. "Oh, no, Iceman, this is for you. I want you to have it." The child smiled at the big man as he looked at her, not quite knowing what to say. Just then, Dora realized that Angela had left her side, so she called out to her. "I must go now, have a nice day, Iceman." The child waved goodbye and ran across the street to Dora's side. "Hello, Mother Dora." Mappy Boy smiled from ear to ear, displaying a set of beautiful white teeth. "Hello, Mappy Boy, and how is your Uncle Shanka and Auntie Gloria today?" she asked, smiling as she handed him her large pail. "Oh, they are wonderful, Mother. Just wonderful." He chipped off pieces of ice from one of the large blocks and filled up Dora's large plastic pail. "Here you go, Mother, all filled up." Mappy Boy placed the large pail on Dora's head. Dora handed him 50 cents for the ice, as she balanced the pail on her head without using her hands. She then took Angela by the hand and headed for home. As they walked home, Dora talked with the child about the dangers of talking to strangers. After completing his route, the Iceman dropped Mappy Boy off at his home in Cocorite. He paid him his wages for the day. "We did good today, Mappy. Tomorrow we do the Levantal route." "I'll be right here at 10 o'clock, Iceman." Mappy Boy took his money and went into the house. The Iceman drove his truck down the hill and onto the main road. His face was serious and hard like a stone. After about a half an hour, he arrived at his destination, a small house deep in the hills of Maraval. He parked his truck under the mango tree and walked up a short incline towards the house. It was shaded by large breadfruit and shottine trees. The ground was covered with the large leaves. The house itself was so old that the wood was black and mossy. He walked up the old stone steps, pushed the door open and went inside. The old house was built over the entrance of an enormous cave. There was a long stairway leading downwards, and on every step there were human skulls facing each other. The enormous cave was well lit with large black candles, about 4 feet tall. Human skulls lined the walls of the cave, and snakes made their homes in them. Overhead large spider webs laced the ceiling like curtains. He soon came to the entrance of an inner cave. The entire entrance was covered by an enormous curtain of dark, purple velvet. On it was a large golden pentagram. On each side of the entrance were 2 large stone skulls facing each other. The Iceman knelt by the skull and waited. After a few minutes, a tall white man came out. He wore a long black robe, like that of a priest. He had long blonde hair that was well groomed and flooded down his back to his waist. His eyes were a deep blue and looked as cold as ice. "Why have you come here like this? Unprepared, unchanged? Are you mad?" he snarled at the Iceman still on his knees. "Forgive me," he said, standing to his feet. "But I must speak to His Majesty at once." "Not like this you won't," he snarled. "Yes, just like this, brother," the Iceman snapped back. The 2 men stared with hatred at each other. "We'll see. Wait here." He turned on his heels and disappeared behind the curtain. After a few minutes, he returned, his face red with anger. "He will see you," he said in a low, cold tone, as though saying those words was the worst thing he had to do all day. The Iceman's lips curled into a small Mona Lisa smile. and his eyes gleamed just a little, but he said nothing. He simply took off his hat, walked towards the curtain, and went in. Behind the curtain, the cave was transformed into a palace. The floor of the cave was covered in a dark blue carpet. The walls were smooth and covered with intricate patterns in gold. As he walked along a large corridor, 3 women of East Indian descent came towards him. They all wore black dresses. One carried a large earthen basin and a towel over her shoulder. The other held a tall black bottle in her hand, the third carried a long black robe. Upon reaching him, the women bowed. They set everything down in front of him, and proceeded to strip him of all of his clothes. They then washed and anointed him and clothed him with the black robe. This was all done in 10 minutes and in silence. The women then left him as he continued his walk up the corridor. He then came to a large black door with gold trim. He stood before the door and it vanished. "Come in, my son." A deep voice broke the silence and echoed through the corridor. The Iceman walked into a large room that was lit by a beautiful crystal chandelier of black candles. In the room of a black man with a gold band around his head and a beautiful black velvet robe with tiny gold pentagrams around the borders of his shirt, sleeves, and neck sat in a large chair. Beside him stood 2 men, one white, the other East Indian. The Iceman bowed himself low before the man in the chair. "My lord, forgive this intrusion, but it is most important." The Iceman spoke with his head to the ground. "Speak, my son," said the high priest. "Forgive me, my father, but I must speak with you alone." There was a moment of silence in the room. "Leave us," the priest ordered. The 2 men vanished from their presence. "Now, my son, have you brought me news of the renegade Red Claw?" he asked with anticipation. "Forgive me, my lord. I have not. But I have seen something most interesting this morning. Something that may help us to find Red Claw, if we could use it." The Iceman was now looking up at the face of his high priest Kahiga. "Well, am I supposed to guess what it is?" he asked. "No, my lord, it is just that it is such a delicate issue," he said, hesitating. "Just take a deep breath and spill it, son." He crossed his leg and settled back into the big chair ready for anything. "I have found a child of light," the Iceman blurted out. "But that is good news, my son." Kahiga leaned forward in his chair. "Where is it?" he asked with excitement. "She is the niece of Dora Van Hart," he said slowly as he lowered his eye again to the floor. Kahiga's face turned white as a sheet as he arose slowly out of his chair. "Dora Van," he whispered, as he walked to a table and poured drinks into 2 glasses. "Stand up, my son," he said as he handed a glass to the Iceman. "Thank you, sir." "You have seen her?" "Yes, sir, she bought ice from me today." Kahiga walked again to the table and set his glass down. "You may go now," he said softly, with his back turned to the Iceman. "Yes, sir." He finished his drink and set the glass down on the table. "Thank you, sir," he said. The door vanished, and he left.